You are listening to The Evolved Masculine. Whether you are wanting more and better sex, more confidence, healthier relationships, or a greater understanding of and deeper connection to your masculinity, this is the podcast for you. I am your host, Destin Garrick. Welcome, everyone. This is Destin Garrick, and you are watching, listening, however you're getting this, the Evolved Masculine podcast. How are y'all doing? We're all in quarantine still, out here in California anyway. I think today marks 4 weeks for my family. It's pouring rain. It's been pouring rain out here for, I don't know, at least a week. So not only can we not leave our property, we really don't leave the house. So we're finding other ways. We're finding other ways to not just enjoy this time, but to utilize this time. And particularly, it's such a good time for introspection, for growth. And if you're living with your lover or partner, to dive into your relationship. And if you're not, whether you're single or you're just doing a lot of video calls, it's a really good time to know yourself better, to know your own sexuality better, to just, I'm curious to hear from you. How have you been using this time for your own evolutionary process? I know that we just started our new sexual self-mastery training, and we had 20 new men in this deep dive into mastering their sexual energy. How are you utilizing this time? Something that's been happening for a lot of couples that I've been hearing about, has been coming my way a lot, is that all this time together is bringing issues and challenges between them to the surface. And one of the major ways in which that's surfacing is their sexual challenges, the challenges in their intimate life. So colleagues of mine, Ian Ferguson and his partner Jaiya, have created something that they've been working with for, 7+ years now, called the Erotic Blueprints. And I think that it may help solve your challenges. If you don't feel like you have particular challenges right now, it will help you gain a greater degree of sexual and erotic mastery. And who doesn't want that? So I'm going to speak a bit more about the blueprints themselves as I get in with them. But first, I want to introduce my guest. My guest today is Ian Ferguson. He is a master erotic blueprint coach. Again, we're going to explain what that means. He's been a guest on the Tony Robbins podcast, so you know he's a big deal, an international speaker, and he is the co-founder of Jaiya Inc. For those of you in my audience who already know Jaiya and her work, Ian is her romantic and business partner. And if you aren't already familiar with their work, you're going to want to be. I hold a really high bar for the people I surround myself with, period, but particularly people's programs and services that I introduce and help promote to my audience. And let me just say, I consider the work that Jaiya and Ian do together to be a gold standard. When it comes to healthy masculinity work, I like to think of myself and the work I put out to be a gold standard. I certainly aim for it to be so. And let me just say that when it comes to sexuality, understanding your own sexuality better, becoming an erotic master in your own right, Jaiya and Ian's work is top notch. So you're going to want to be here through this whole session today. If you haven't taken the Erotic Blueprint quiz yourself yet, I'm going to put it in the comment box below for those who are with us live, as well as into the show notes for those who are watching the podcast afterwards. All of this will make a whole lot more sense for you by going through and taking this quiz yourself, understanding your own erotic blueprint. And before we get into this any further, please let me welcome Ian Ferguson.
Thank you, Destin. Great intro. Feel really connected to you. It's been 12 years that we've known each other?
Something along those lines, yes.
There's been a lot of evolution of the masculine for both of us.
Yeah.
In that over a decade of knowing each other.
Yeah. So speaking of, it is within this podcast and with this work that I do with the Evolved Masculine, we explore what is healthy, more evolved masculinity. What does that mean to have a healthy relationship to your own masculinity? What does it mean to be a good man in the 21st century, 2020 and beyond? And I'd love to have you share more about your own journey there, because just in the time that I've known you in these 12 years, I have witnessed a lot of your own maturing of yourself as a man.
Thank you.
and vice versa.
Yes, exactly.
And I know what I do know of you, you've walked your own unique path of understanding your masculinity, understanding your inner feminine, and how you weave those and show up as the man that you are. Can you share with us a bit about your journey and how you relate to those topics?
Sure. Well, one of the things that one of the biggest pivot points in my life came before you knew me, and was the evolution that got me to the point of being in a relationship, finding Jaiya, being in a relationship with her. And that was that I was in a marriage, and that was about a 6-year marriage, 8-year relationship. And what I realized in the course of, the relationship ended in divorce. And what came to me as the pivotal lesson from this was that I had a lack of the ability to be present, to really be dropped in, connected to my truth, and also be so solidly present with my lover that I could be with her desires. I could be with them to the point of fulfilling them. Like, no matter what that meant of what I had to learn or how much time I had to be with her. These are things I failed to do in that relationship. And on the root of that was this, on the very underpinning of that, it was a lack of a sense of I'm not enough, right? I was the good boy. I would twist myself in knots to try and be something that I thought my girlfriends or lovers wanted me to be at the time. And they weren't even asking that of me. It was all my conception of what I was supposed to be, to put on this mask, to be the guy that was going to be the good lover, the good boy, the one who fulfilled their idea of what I was supposed to be. And it was a very crazy web. And obviously that didn't work very well. It didn't work well in my 20s when I was couldn't get past a 6-month threshold with any of my girlfriends. And then my marriage was the healthiest expression of what I had learned to that date about really good communication. Like, I'd been a good communicator, but inauthenticity was underneath the whole thing. So I could be a great communicator, but if it's all based on, it's a foundation, if it's a shit cake and I'm putting icing on it, it's basically going to taste like a shit cake. So that was the biggest thing. Getting out, having that relationship end.
Before you go forward, I just wanted to say for our listeners, how many of you can really relate to that contorting yourself into this idea of what you think you're supposed to be and what you think that your lover or partner expects of you, or the parts of you that you think would be acceptable or okay or would make you enough. And someone would cut out or push down and repress anything else while you're putting up this other facade. So I know that was a huge part of my own journey. And finally getting out of that. And I can't even say that like, I'm sure that there are still ways in which it creeps in, but I also know it's night and day compared to how it was. At its base, it's the only reason why I'm finally able to have a truly healthy, stable relationship and marriage at that. And it allows me to be so much more relaxed in myself and a greater sense of my own freedom.
Yeah, for sure. When we're not pretending and we get to be ourselves and get to be seen for who we fully are, that is to me actually the essence of truly fulfilling relationship.
Yeah.
Creating a container where I can be fully present to my lover for exactly who they are and be curious. Like, even if I'm upset or don't agree with, or am confronted by some aspect of my partner, to be able to be present and curious and connected. And if it's something, let's say, that's so challenging that I don't see myself fulfilling it, or I don't see a way for me to give that to my partner, sticking with the curiosity to the point where I can find a way to hold that for them and provide it for them without compromising who I am and what I need. So that's the big challenge, like making it to that point without compromise. And in the same that you're talking about, I set a bar for myself. I went through a couple of short-term monogamous relationships after my marriage ended, and I noticed that I was slipping back into this pattern of kind of like contorting to please them. But I also noticed that those partners were actually wanting me to. Like, this time I was testing it, right?
So your partners wanted you to contort into their idea of what they wanted you to be.
Part because I was being more expressed and authentic, those things were confronting them. And in some cases, it was just simply things about relating about my divorce. Like, how my relationship was very confronting to one of my partners. She didn't want me to talk about it at all. And that didn't last, for more than a minute. Like, wait, that's a big part of who I am in terms of my learning curve and what I get to share. And if you want to get to know me, that's got to be on the table.
Yeah.
So, that's a sort of gross version of a very bold version of what I'm talking about, but it was subtler things of just, here I'm expressing something about, I'm attracted to other people, how confronting that can be for other people. And it got to this point where I was like, this just does not work for me anymore. I really do need to find that new level of relationship where the person is willing to be fully with me 100%, and I'm going to make the space and I'm going to return that for my partner. And that is how Jaiya came into my life. That is the pinnacle moment, actually, like right when she walked in the door, essentially, to my life. Mm-hmm. That's the partner that I found.
So Jaiya is a force.
Yes. She has no wallflowers, no shrinking violet, for sure.
How has that been for you, being a man in a relationship with someone we refer to as like an alpha female, a woman who commands such attention, who, for a while you were more behind the scenes.
Sure.
Or,
I had a completely different business. I was doing like custom design for movie stars and Hollywood.
You had a little,
totally different
pseudonym during her podcast.
Yeah, exactly. I was D Love. I didn't even come out with my full name during the podcast.
And she was the shining one.
Yeah.
How was that for you then? And what changed, if anything, to where it is now?
So when I had my own business, of course I have my own thing. I mean, I'm working with like Drew Barrymore and Ashton Kutcher, and like I was working with top designers in LA. So I had established a business and I had a sense of like my autonomy when we first got.
What were you doing?
I was doing custom furniture design. So I was cabinet design and, doing crazy ass interiors for these people. So that was fun and it was amazing, but it wasn't really fulfilling to me. Mm-hmm. And that was something definitely because I had my territory, right? So I could support Jaiya and just be in that with her. And the real challenges came up when I made the leap. And I was like, because we would do workshops together and I was mostly like supporting, doing sound, but we'd start a dialogue during the workshops because our relationship is a real petri dish. The things that we talk about, doing for like advise other people to do, we've done them all. We put them into our life. We practice with them. We see like, does this work? How's this help? So people wanted to start to get more of that flavor in the live workshop. So she would, call out and say, hey, Ian, what'd you think about that? And that eventually turned to like, okay, well, now I'm just going to get up there and share the stage with you. Mm-hmm. And it also turned to, I've been into human peak performance and a lot of aspects throughout my entire life, from getting into Tony Robbins when I was in my young 20s and going into landmark education. So personal development and having a truly fulfilling life has always been front of agenda for me.
Great.
And I realized in being around Jaiya and the work that she was doing and starting to get deeper into it, I'm like, man, sexuality is the doorway, like sex and money. These are the doorways. Once you walk through that doorway in someone's life, you are in every aspect of their life. Mm-hmm. How they relate to themselves as a sexual creature, how they put themselves out in the world that way, how they and then, in finance, it's the same thing. We don't talk about that, but that's people are more familiar with, like financial coaching. Mm-hmm. But when you see the impact that sexuality coaching has on people and just how deeply it goes, I was like, whew, that is a place where it's worth spending my life. Yeah.
And so how has this affected your dynamics with one another? From when you were more behind the scenes kind of doing your own separate thing to when you're like, I went to your last Path to Passion big event for 500 people in Denver, Colorado last fall. And the two of you were full on equal partners on that stage, running the whole thing in a way that honestly, I'd never seen you before. And it was awesome.
Thank you. Thank you, man. The props are received. Thank you for that.
Honestly, it might have been my favorite part of the whole thing.
Yeah.
But it's part of the fact, like, I've known you for 12 years and I've gotten to see that journey, and it was just like, I mean, you were fucking impressive.
Thank you.
Really impressive.
Well, thank you. We've definitely had our ups and downs. We've had moments and some extended moments in our relationship where we thought it was the end. Mm-hmm. But being able to be in that intensity of conflict, and at one point we actually did end our relationship for a couple of weeks when it just got everything got blown up. Like, mm-hmm. I won't go into the specifics of it. I'd be happy to, but this isn't the time for it. But it was, we had some like true awakening moments that occurred about a year and a half ago. And, I was already in the road to this kind of growth of really being called forward to own that space, like you say, own the stage and come in as a full partner. But it was about a year and a half ago that we had basically like true enlightenment experiences where a lot of the stories finally just got shredded. Like, oh, that's just my story of who I am. That's just my story of who you are. That's just my story of what I think I need. And the dismantling of the stories opened up a whole new level of being, and in that level of beingness, a whole new level of service. So what I think you may have witnessed on that stage, in all of the variety that was there, was none of it was about me. All of it was about service. Mm-hmm. Service to 500 people who walked in the room. I'm feeling emotional about this. That's stepping into beingness to the point of serving what's showing up. And it's the same thing inside of my personal relationship with Jaiya. Mm-hmm. Being in service to myself and my own inspirations, and being in service to Jaiya and my lover, and finding out where those energies come together, where there's conflict and disharmony, working with the polarity. So we know when it's in this detracting mode and where we can turn it on and turn it into attraction and connection. And in an instant, when we become aware of the stories, be able to drop the story so we can just be love, right? Ultimately, it's about being love and unconditional love. And then, so now I feel like I'm going way off into the stratosphere, but it's ultimately about unconditional love.
Enlightening experiences can do that.
Yeah, exactly. It's about being unconditional love, and unconditional love can have boundaries. Uh-huh. So that's tricky for some people.
Sure.
But being able to feel into my body and know when there's a signal of something's off, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of letting something completely unwind and turn into, neurotic lashing out, or, like the kind of shit that people do in their relationships all the time, to catch the body signal, the body awareness, like, oh, something didn't sit right with that. And then to be able to bring that up with vulnerability. Like, even if I don't know what it is, be able to be like, I'm feeling this tension in my body. I don't know what it is. Let me feel into it. Let me find out what that is, so that then I can actually get to the need, the root need, as opposed to this like surface level. So this has been that's been one of the biggest evolutions for Jaiya and my relationship, and how we've come to this place of what you're calling equality. You know, we're just being, like, we're being unconditional love for each other, with each other, and for the people that we serve in our life.
Beautiful, man. Like I said, it's enviable. Something that I know many people strive towards. It's wonderful to be that type of an example. So from there, I honestly, we could dive into so many areas and spend hours. And I want to dive into these erotic blueprints.
Okay, good.
Again, I think they're awesome. And that's what's going on right now. We've got people who are taking the erotic blueprint quiz left and right. And many others who are watching or listening to this who are like, the erotic blueprint, what? So let's start by breaking that down. Can you give us a brief synopsis of these 5 blueprints?
So yes, it's like an erotic personality typing system. Once you know your type, you get a clear, specific language of what your turn-ons are and what your turn-offs are. So we call them like the positive or superhero aspects of superpowers of your eroticism. I know you have a phrase that you use around superpowers as well. So we talk about the superpowers and we talk about the shadows. So the shadows are the breaks, the things that get in your way, interrupt your pleasure. There's 5 blueprint types. There's the energetic. So the energetic type is turned on by anticipation, tease, and they love spaciousness. So an energetic could have an orgasm standing 20 feet across the room from their lover. They could have an orgasm from a breeze blowing through, or the sunshine, touching their skin.
So my wife is a full-on energetic. Yeah. I'm pretty hardcore shapeshifter. We can get into that more as we go. And I've dived very deeply into my energetic for some years, but Ellie could do all like energetic all the time and be very blissful.
Sure. Right. Yeah, I feel that in her. Definitely, she's energetic. So the shadows of the energetic can be, the shutdown can come quickly. So if you collapse the space on the energetic, you get in too quick, you come in with some of the other energies of the blueprints, it can create total shutdown. Yep. Other shadows they're just so hypersensitive that they pick up any shift in the energy, the emotional energy, bioelectrical energy, and that too can have them shut down or close off. So their antenna or radar are up all the time. The sensuals bring the artistry to sexuality. They're just all about the senses being ignited, from the taste to the sounds to the fabrics on the body to the way that the sensual is touched. Like an energetic wants that space. The sensual wants it just collapsed, like, oh, juicy. I'm in that body with you. I feel you. It's just juicy, yummy. And the superpowers,
all different types of sensations. Stimulating all 5 of the senses.
Yes.
Candles, different types of soft
hot baths, exactly.
Music and
and they can have they can have full body orgasms from a different realm, and that could be like eating a strawberry. Sensuals tend to moan when they eat food that they just love. You'll notice they tend to wear a lot of different fabric textures, like a scarf, like a fuzzy scarf and a nice knit shirt, and they just love all of that thing to do with the senses. The shadow aspects for the sensual are they get caught up in their head. So it's that kind of thing of like, they might be getting in the mood, but then if the lighting is wrong or the music's too loud, or they're thinking, wait, they're down there too long, but how do I smell down there? Or my breath is bad. Or I forgot to call that person back. So the sensual can be interrupted from their pleasure by the 5 senses. So that can be a deep shadow aspect for the sensual.
Mhm.
The sexual blueprint is what we typically think about is the stereotypical thing about what we think about when we think about sex. It's about genitals. It's about orgasm. It's about going for it, like sexual
Let's just get in
satisfaction.
there and fuck.
Just right. Get in there and fuck. And for the sexual, sex is like air. It's like water, right? The true sexual needs it to feel fulfilled. If they've got sex and they're having those orgasms, then they tend to be much more effective and efficient in their life. They're much more connected. They feel like vibrantly alive. Some of the shadow aspects of the sexual is that they can miss the journey. So they often find themselves in a relationship where their partner may not be being fed because they're so quick to get into 0 to 60 for arousal. If you show them the genitals or you get into genital touch, boom, they bring the fun to sex, but sometimes they miss the ride. Sexual shame can be another aspect and shadow aspect, especially for vulva-bodied folks, because the vulva-bodied folks among us, if you're overtly sexual, you may have often been shamed for it. It's just like not proper to be highly sexual. For me, I have a sexual shadow that I just really discovered about 2 years ago, which is the good boy thing. How much it played it's not proper. I'm the jerk. I'm the asshole. If I'm bringing my eroticism and my desire forward for someone else, I'm imposing my sexuality. So,
I've worked with countless men who carry that.
It's so woven into and even the mythology that women are not sexual creatures. Like they're not into turn on. They're not into sex. I bought that Victorian mythology up through my 20s until I realized that's very far from the truth. Once you find the turn on switch for the vulva bodied among us, sometimes it's insatiable.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
yeah. So, and then we get the kinky type, and that's one of my sensual and kinky are my primaries. So the kinky blueprint, people think stereotypically of dungeons, whips and chains, and dominance and submission, and very intense kinky play. We break it down to kinky is whatever's taboo for you. So sex out of missionary style may be taboo for you. You may be into the whips and chains and the heavy dominance and submission. And all of it, the range for the kinky blueprint is vast. It's an incredible world to drop into. And the shadow sides for kinky are largely shame, because it's this thing of like, why am I turned on by that? That's weird. Nobody's going to accept that. That's a really strange thing. I've got to hide this part of myself. So shame is a really big player for people who are kinky, not wanting to be perceived that way and turning off their own erotic turn on. We also break down kinky into two different types. We talk about psychological kinky. So that's turned on by gameplay, like power play, dominance and submission, predicament bondage, where you're stuck in this position and you can't get out unless you figure out the answer to the quiz, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And then there's the physiological or sensation-based kinky, and that's more like the scratching, the whips and chains, the spanking, the intense constriction. And then our final blueprint is the shapeshifter. And the shapeshifter is, as you say you are, the one who loves it all. They love it all. They want more of it. They want it forever. And they're insatiable with the appetites.
Yeah. And like one of the things, as the two of you have dived into this over the years, you've built out more and more of the nuances and more of the understandings and the light side and the dark side and, all these things. I just remember early on when it was less built out, and Jaiya would talk about how the shapeshifter can do it all, can be any of them. And I'm like, I mean, that's true, Jaiya, but it's more than that. It's not just that I can be access any of them. It's that I need them all.
Yeah,
I need them all. If any one of them is missing in my life, I feel like something is missing from my life.
Yep. That's the starvation aspect. That's a shadow aspect for the shapeshifter. So like, because you need them all, you desire them all, you want them all. If they're missing, one of the shadow aspects for the shapeshifter, you can be an amazing lover But with your partner who may not be the shapeshifter, you'll go in to feed them and please them exactly how they want it, and you'll leave yourself on the sidelines. So you'll end up starving in your sexuality. Excuse me. But your lover is pleased, but you're sitting on the sidelines with your cup out, wanting more, begging, please feed me.
Yeah.
And then we have something that we kind of think of as a sixth blueprint, which is the shadow shapeshifter.
Oh, tell me about this.
Okay. So
I don't think I've heard this one before.
Yeah. So the shadow shapeshifter is somebody who's got the shadows of all of them, of all the blueprint types, but none of the positives.
Interesting. How does that look?
Well, it's a pretty dark place to be. So it's definitely able to be worked with, but they have so many breaks and so many stops to their turn on in every area. So the energetic, they're too sensitive, they're shut down, they can't get into that physical connection with somebody. The sensual, nothing's ever right. There's always something that needs to be fixed. The sexual, they've got shame about their desire and their sexual appetite. The kinky, deep shame holds them back. So they just have all the layers of all the things that are suppressing desire, inherited stories, traumas, any number of things can kind of stick a person in that zone.
Yeah, that sounds pretty intense. Is there a way out of that?
It's a slow process, but one of the things that we're really keen on is getting into the shadows aspects of people's sexuality. Is it's really, Emily Nagoski and her book, Come As You Are?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's based on some research that's all about that. It's not about putting more gas on your turn on, like the things that you love. It's actually where you get more connection to your pleasure is by taking the brakes off, like taking off the shadow aspects and discovering the things that are interrupting your pleasure. And if we're operating towards our sexuality in a way of like, I'm freaked out or I'm scared about that, or I'm unwilling to go into maybe the traumas that are existing in the past, and I'm unwilling to feel them fully, that's just going to create this pendulum of resistance. Yeah. So it's just going to, what we resist persists. So it's going to create more solidity to those things. So one of the processes that, is part of the work that we do, comes in many forms, but it is about integrating those shadow aspects. So a shadow shapeshifter, it would be going for the one that is the most triggering, the hardest one for them to deal with, and really start to work with that aspect of themselves to bring it out, find out what it wants, what it's trying to, how it's trying to benefit the person, and then start to work up that desire chain to get it to a higher elevated integrated aspect, so it no longer blocks the pleasure. It basically dissolves the block in the work.
That sounds very powerful.
It's super powerful.
Very powerful.
Yes. So
again, I know this is stuff that you could be talking about all day, and I want to make sure that we're hitting some of the key things that our audience is going to want to know. Well, first, just to answer two questions that have come through, I have a question about sapiosexuals. Are they a blueprint type?
So sometimes what we find with people who would consider themselves really deeply like sapiosexual, they don't.
Let's define it.
Yeah, so sapiosexual is I'm turned on by intellectual, by the mind, right? Mm-hmm. So that's all completely valid. That's a complete turn on. This is the B spot. It's the most erotic organ in our body, right?
B like brain.
Brain, yeah, the B spot. So it is the thing that creates turn on. But I would ask the person to explore. It's sort of, I would say it potentially would fit into like the energetic. Mm-hmm. However, I would just ask the person to begin to explore within the blueprints and start to play with integrating the shadow aspects and seeing, because they may be an energetic who's never recognized that they're an energetic, that they really need incredible amounts of space and that anticipation and tease, and that it's often the collapsing into the sexuality or the intercourse aspects that sort of takes them out and shuts them down. So it's just an invitation to start to explore that there may be access for you in these different blueprint types, and to just honor yourself fully while playing with expansion.
Awesome. Really awesome. So the other thing that comes up a lot is how do we handle being in a relationship with somebody who has a different blueprint from ourselves?
Yeah, that's big. That's where a lot of the people end up coming to us, or like finding like, oh my God, please save me. But it's so we really think that this sort of sexual incompatibility thing is a myth.
Okay.
So certainly there's like hormonal aspects to our sexuality. There's different libido desire levels. And then you throw the blueprints in, and Jaiya and I are at our core vastly different blueprints. I'm kinky sensual. She's sexual energetic. I've expanded much more, and so is she. I wouldn't say I'm full on shapeshifter because my craving for more and more and the voraciousness isn't necessarily there, but I have facility and I have turn on in every single blueprint at this point. So the first thing that's pivotal in every aspect of intimate relationship is willingness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a willingness? Because we can look at each other and we can say, you're a kinky, or I'm a kinky, you're energetic. We're just incompatible. And we look at it as more like, as if that's, I speak German, you speak French. And we're really into each other. We're really hot for each other. We don't quite know how to communicate. Oh, you speak French. This is never going to work out. You're completely the wrong person for me. That could be the response. Or you can express the willingness to start to learn the turn-ons, the turn-offs, and the erotic language, the subtlety, the erotic artistry of what it is that turns them on, why it turns them on, and learning how to speak their blueprint, feed their blueprint, heal the blueprints, and then expanding into the blueprint. And the real delight comes from getting into empathetic resonance with your partner, so that you're not just doing it to please them, but really having that breakthrough of a final discovery of like, oh, wow, I see how you can be turned on by 20 feet across the room. And now I can weave my kinky in with that energetic, and I can bring some dark energetic into this kinky play and play with tease. So I can
You're speaking my language now.
So it's starting to understand that there's crossover, like finding those places where you can meet each other. We have something called the sex communication checklist, which you take the list, you go through all of these different ways that you can play erotically, sexually. You mark the ones that you're into, the ones that you're willing to, and the ones that you're in no way. Great to do this like on your own. Just sit there and feel into like, this is, and then we break them down by blueprints. Then you come together with your partner.
I want to see this. I want to see this.
Oh, it's awesome. So, and then you come together with your partner or the person you're dating. This is great for single people. I want to bust a myth after we're done with this other myth busting as well. Come together with your partner, and then you've got this like readout. Like, oh, you're into that? I had no idea. I actually happen to be into that too. So you start to find just even a few places where you can map onto each other's turn on and expand from the zone where you are connected. So you're focusing on the pleasure. You're expanding those zones of connection. And going back, I think it was this conversation with you, just that piece of curiosity. I don't understand it. Like, this is a big one for people who have kinky partners. It's really ideal that you don't hit on that shame button. Even if you're triggered by something that they say they're turned on by, sit with it. Go like, oh, I feel tension in my body. I love you. I'm curious about that. Why does it turn you on? What is it about it that turns you on? Are there other ways that can show up? Like, let's say it's something really confronting, like the person likes to be strapped to a table and pegged. And the energetic partner is just going like, I can't do that to you, and you want to be spanked at the same time, and that's harming you, and then they have their own judgment about what a spanking is, and it's cruel and it's not spiritual. That can all be there, but that's your own story. So own your story and realize it's true for you, but doesn't need to be true for your partner.
Mhm.
And if you're going to operate from a place of love and curiosity, step into the place of like, again, like, what is it? And I can't do that for you in that way. But where could I meet you? Maybe I could do energetic spanking and start to open that thing up for myself of like what it is to dominate you or play in that way. So there's any number of exercises that we have for expanding into the blueprints. And the quick myth bust that I want to do around this as well is we always have people coming to me. I have people, like, I talk to them about the blueprints and like, that sounds amazing and really interesting. And I'd like to explore that, but I'm not in a relationship. So I'm just going to wait until I'm with a partner. And I'm just like, I don't have any hair now because I pull it all out when they say this to me. I'm like, what are you talking about? Are you an erotic being, whether you're in a relationship or not? Yes. The answer is yes or yes, right?
I get the same thing with my sexual self-mastery work. Like, oh, like I don't have a partner right now, so I don't have anyone to practice with. I'm like, honestly, this is the best time for you to be doing it. Like, understand yourself, sort yourself out, master your own sexuality, know your own blueprint, and then you can come into your next lovership from a totally new, empowered level of self-knowledge, and as well as it will change how you show up with your lover too.
Exactly. So the architect who builds a house that falls down doesn't then go and just start building the next, like wait until it's time to build the next house. They're probably going to look at the plans. They're going to look at the blueprint. They're going to say, oh, this didn't work about the structure. This is the thing I need to do better. I really hated that window in that space, and I'll never do that kind of thing again. So that self-exploration, that dropping into, I'm an erotic being. I have this pleasure instrument. And maybe I've just been going and jerking off, and that's how I, get my O vitamin. I get my little orgasm, and I'm good. But taking the time, your mentor, my mentor, Joe Kramer, came up with the beautiful title of orgasmic yoga. It's just like spending, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, exploring some aspect of your body, of your turn on or not turn on, that you just don't normally explore without an agenda, without like, I've got to get the ejaculation. So that you learn your own instrument, makes you more facile, gives you the language to come to your next lover and say, this is something I love. Would you be willing to provide that for me? And vice versa, knowing your own instrument and the range of possibility here starts to give you mastery of other people's bodies. I can try this. I can try that. Do you like this? Do you not like that? And, being single
doesn't want a greater degree of sexual confidence.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. And the courage to, I think the title of the show is the, courage to ask
confidence to please your lover and courage to be fully sexually fulfilled.
Yes, exactly. We don't get there by trying to people please or just showing up when the time is right. We get there by doing the work, having the play, having the fun, and exploring all the time.
All the time. So is there anything else that, again, folks, I put the link in the first comment. If you haven't taken the Blueprint quiz yourself yet, take it. They used to just tell you the one blueprint that you are, but for quite some time now they break it down into percentages so you can see which ones you're more of and which ones you're less of. Perfect. So all of this will make even more sense to you as you go into that quiz. And they also, after they take the quiz, they get videos that kind of explain a video that explains their blueprint more deeply, right?
Yep. And then currently at the moment, because we've got the program open, there's a 3-video series that kind of dials you in on some of the basics of all the blueprints. Mm-hmm. So that's really cool. And then you'd asked if there was something else I wanted to share. The blueprints themselves, the personality types that we're talking about, are one aspect of a much broader cosmology of sexual wholeness, mm-hmm. right? So these are, the quiz alone has made a huge difference. We have over 300,000 people who have taken this quiz.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when are you going to hit that million mark?
I don't know. Probably 2021.
That would be a year out to more than triple your current number is quite impressive itself.
Yeah. So it's a deeper cosmology, right? So we have something called the stages of sexuality. Where are you in your stage of sexuality? Are you healing, resting, transformational, curious, adventurous? We also have the 4 pathways to sexual health and 4 blocks or pathways to sexual health and pleasure, which is really deep work, kind of sexual detective work, because your hormones may be off. Your bioenergetic system may be off. You may have had a physical injury that's interrupting your ability to feel pleasure. You may have, what's the one I'm leaving out? There's hormonal, like biochemical, there's bioenergetic, physical, and emotional. So, of course, there's all of these layers, the shadow layers, the traumas, the different inherited beliefs or beliefs that are fully yours that may be interrupting your ability to connect with your partner, your lover. So it's really, the blueprints are the full system is a 360-degree sexual wholeness, sexual wellness belief. And we actually believe nobody is broken, nobody's wrong. You are perfect. You are whole and complete as you are right now. And
that's such a big deal for so many.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you are. There's nothing wrong with your desires. As long as you're finding ways to consensually meet them, right? You're not being a toxic human being and taking from others, but you're consciously cultivating a knowledge of eroticism. I mean, this energy, this sexual energy, it is the root of all it is the root of creation. Yeah. And it can be weird talking about this and offering programs about this during a time of crisis. But when we break it down and we look at what gets us present, what helps create hormonal balance, what helps create connection in our relationships, what has us able to show up as leaders and dropped in and connected and resourced, being able to tap into one's own pleasure, own that, and prioritize it, and prioritize your connection and in your intimate relationships with others, if you're in a relationship. This is the thing that allows people to really show up and ride the wave, whether it's amazing or we're in deep ass crisis like we're in right now.
Totally. Incredibly well said. Do y'all understand why we were so excited about having Ian on and having this conversation, and why I speak of it as gold standard work? Who is it? One of our commenters, Michael Gibson, he said, "You're like a sexual mad scientist, Ian. Well done."
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Mad scientist. Yep, I'll own that title.
Yeah, very, very well. So wherever you are in your own journey, there's something for you here. I mean, again, like I've been in a deep dive of erotic exploration and understanding my sexuality actively, intensely for 20 plus years. I've put a couple $100,000+ into my development. I've worked with masters and teachers, etc., all over the world, and I've gained a lot and continue to gain a lot from this map and set of blueprints that they've created, and quite honestly, the largest set of work that they've created. So I'm confident, absolutely confident, that you would as well. Ian, so what do they do from here?
Well, the best thing to do, if they've taken the quiz, then just stay in communication with us. That puts you on our email list, so we're able to let you know what's going on, what the opportunities are with our community, with any of the coursework that we're offering. So the quiz is really the action step, because that's an immediate give back. It's not you get results. You get a new understanding. You can share that with a partner, with somebody you're dating. You can share it with your friends. It's a great conversation starter. Take the quiz and take it to a dinner party, and it'll just open up a whole awesome evening of very interesting conversations with your friends. So I would just always direct people to the quiz, because that's the first step in understanding what this whole blueprint thing is all about.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. And for those who are just super into this, which is probably you if you're still listening, I think the second ever episode of The Evolved Masculine, my guest was Jaiya.
Awesome.
and we dove into and discussed the erotic blueprints there as well. So check that out on the Evolved Masculine podcast, which of course you can find on your favorite podcast platform, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever. So check.
I'm going to make. Sorry to interrupt. I'm going to make one more bold suggestion here. Obviously,
please.
the quiz is awesome, and it's that first introduction step. But I'll just be bold and say, and give you all the invitation to join this Erotic Blueprint Breakthrough course. Right now, we're in a launch with it, and you'll get stuff from Destin about that. We are, and it is the. We won't be offering it for the tuition that we're offering it for it anymore. So if you listen to this podcast after June of 2020, the investment's going to have gone up by that point. We're keeping it low because of the current climate. We want to get people in there because it's transformational work. So I would say take the quiz, find out about us, feel like if we're the right people for you, because we may not be. But if you feel a connection and you're in it, just take the step and join us in the course, because it'll rock your world.
It'll rock your world. Yeah, fully. Again, my two big thumbs up around it. Is there any parting thoughts or suggestions, ideas that you'd like to express to our audience?
Now's the time.
Yeah.
We've got now. We've only got now. There's nothing but now. So sexuality may not be the frontier of your personal development or where you want to be putting your energies, but wherever it is.
Why not?
Well, why not? I think if you're working with your having a fulfilling life, it better be in the mix, right?
Absolutely.
But it's just the freedom of like really get present to where you are right now, what the need is, where it is you want to go with your life, and do it now.
Mm-hmm.
Ain't no time like the present.
Ain't no time like the present. Awesome, Ian. Really a pleasure. Always is. I always enjoy our connections. Really good to do a proper introduction of you and this work to my audience. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in as well to the Evolved Masculine podcast. We put these out roughly every week. Be sure to like, your rates, subscribe, comment, share, all of that whole realm of stuff. Honestly, it really does help. If you haven't yet gotten the book of the Evolved Masculine, Be the Man the World Needs and the One She Craves, now's the time. I do want to say one last thing on my podcast before we go. So I have high ambitions. I always want more, and I do my work from a sense of purpose and mission, and like I want to impact the world with this and bring this message out as big and far as I can. And I wrote my book very much from a place of deep passion and commitment. And writing a book is such a it's such a labor of love. So much got poured in. No idea, with no telling what the response was going to be. Let me bare my heart, bare my soul, and we'll see. And of course, the dream of anybody who puts out a book is immediate New York Times bestseller. Nobody can stop talking about it, et cetera, et cetera. And all right, so we haven't quite done that per se. Our sales are pretty good, but they're not like, oh my God, friggin' amazing. But what has been, oh my God, friggin' amazing has been the response that I've gotten from the people who have read it. Over the past few weeks particularly, but honestly over the past few months since it's come out, but the conversations that I've had with people, or the emails that I've received, the messages that I've got about the impact that my book has had on people who have read it has brought tears to my eyes literally multiple times. And I share this in part because, well, this is my podcast and I get to share whatever the hell I want to share, but it's very present for me. It's been extremely impactful for me. Writing my book was really difficult for me, and it's just getting such a feeling of fulfillment. been worth it. This is what I wrote it for. And so I also share this with you, say that, I mean, it's a lifetime body of work of 20 plus years of my life's work. Yours for under $20 or under 10 if you get the ebook. Guarantee there's something in it that would alter your friggin' life. So pick up the book, take the blueprint quiz, dive into the Erotic Blueprint course, dive further into the world, what we're doing here with the Evolved Masculine as well. We're really we do this work from passion. We do this work of passion, from passion, for passion. So take it in, transform your life. You deserve fulfillment. You deserve fulfillment. Thank you, Ian, for being on. Thank you, everybody, for listening. See you soon. Peace. Thank you for listening to the Evolved Masculine podcast. If you liked what you heard, please be sure to subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, and leave a comment to help other men discover this show and help the Evolved Masculine movement spread. It really does help. I want you to do more than simply consume content, but rather to embody a new way of being and radically transform your life for the better. Join us in the Evolved Masculine membership community, a brotherhood of men who are committed to being the best men that we can be. Crystallize a vision of your most evolved masculine self and implement the tools to take him out of the idea realm and begin embodying him now. Reprogram your sexuality and deepen your understanding of women and the feminine. Learn more and join us at evolvedmasculine.com/membership. I believe in you.